Okay, it's late, but I'm in the zone and I want to keep talking about some of the skills and techniques and concepts that we covered in the Oregon Resistance Boot Camp that I went to over this past weekend. There were about 200 Oregonians who came together to learn skills, strategies, and techniques to effectively and non-violently resist the authoritarian regime of Donald Trump. Before I discuss strategic frameworks for nonviolence, I want to remind folks that all of the information that I'm sharing here was thoughtfully compiled by teachers, activists who have decades of experience engaging in successful nonviolent resistance movements. All of this material I am providing free to you with permission of the head trainer. These are training materials that came out of our boot camp. That boot camp was put together by volunteers. And unfortunately, the reality of teaching an event like this to a couple hundred people is that it incurs quite a bit of cost. So there is an Act Blue link you can find in the video description on YouTube. If you find the material that I'm sharing here helpful at all, especially if you want to take it back and share it with your grassroots group, if you are like, yes, I am learning things that I'm going to be able to use to successfully resist the regime of Donald Trump right where I live, please consider going and throwing $5 or $10 at that Act Blue link. Volunteers spent a long time and a lot of effort putting this event together, and those volunteers are having to pay out of their own pocket. It would be such a great thank you for them sharing their skills and decades of experience and expertise by helping cover the costs of the big training event that I just went to, and the materials from which I am now able to share with all of you. A lot of folks keep asking me in the comments, especially on YouTube, like, how can I go to a boot camp like this? Unfortunately, at this moment in time, there are not plans to replicate it. There are de-escalation and nonviolent resistance trainings that you can take from a number of organizations. I know ACLU does them. I know Indivisible does them. Peace Force, Nonviolence International. There's a lot of organizations that offer trainings that you can take. I really hope that by breaking down a number of these concepts into, less than 10-minute videos, that it'll be easily digestible and y'all can take some of these skills and concepts back to your group, or at least help spark other people's curiosity for nonviolence, because I think a lot of times people have this false idea that nonviolence is ineffective, that it's passive, that it's peaceful, and it's none of those things. And speaking of things that nonviolence is not, it's not impulsive. It's not something that you just engage in on a whim. Nonviolence is strategic. It is carefully planned. And that's one of the reasons that I think I have such an affinity for it, right? Is I am somebody who likes to game out everything. I like to plan and over-plan. I'm definitely an overthinker. I want to strategize as much as I possibly can. I want to think about every potential outcome, every possible scenario, and I want to plan for it. I don't like to leave things up to chance. I like to be prepared. So when we look at nonviolent resistance movements, we're not looking at impulsive actions. We are looking, I shouldn't say impulsive, right? The term that they used in the training was spontaneous. That's more neutral than impulsive, right? Spontaneous energy is valuable, but successful actions come from clear planning, training, and preparation. We are not pie in the sky. We are not naive. What we are doing is we are assessing risk and carefully scripting out, planning out the actions that we're going to take so that we can maximize our chance to be successful. Our actions may be nonviolent, but I like to think about them as if they're battle plans. You're not going to win a battle that you just stumble into. You have to carefully game out what's going to happen. You need strategic frameworks. And in particular, when we are standing up against an authoritarian regime that is intent on committing harm against us and is not going to be cheesed to have us stand up against them, right? They want us to comply. They want us to obey. They want us to lay down. They want us to cower. They are going to be, as my kids like to say, discheesed with us if we stand up and we resist. There are very real risks to standing up against authoritarianism, and we cannot go in with rose-colored glasses. We have to properly assess those risks and plan to mitigate them. Because what did we say in a previous video? The number one priority in nonviolent resistance is we plan for safety. Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. Every action carries legal, physical, and reputational risks. Preparing for those risks with safety measures is a crucial part of nonviolent discipline. Planning, organizing, self-control, restraint, and regulation. We call it nonviolent discipline because it absolutely is a discipline. Those safety measures can look like making sure that we train our participants in de-escalation and emotion regulation skills so that they can maintain their nonviolent discipline. We train and deploy safety marshals. We have medics and legal observers. We establish legal hotlines, bail funds. We organize, including gaming out scenarios, role-playing situations in a layered network of small pods or affinity groups. For the training this weekend, we were organized into these affinity groups. You communicate, you strategize, you learn with your group, you develop a rapport. Nonviolent resistance is always rooted in community. It's always rooted in connection with other people. Remember, the fourth core principle of nonviolent resistance is solidarity builds strength. We are stronger when we act together and when we take the time to build those relationships. We know that we can trust each other. We know that we understand each other. And in the moment when things are really heated, when the stakes are really high, we have each other's backs. And when we're talking about strategic frameworks for nonviolence, we also have to understand that escalation can happen, right? We have a focus of de-escalation, and I've talked about de-escalation months ago, and I want to talk about it in the coming days some more. There are situations in which we need to escalate. An escalation of our tactics, an escalation, a growth of our movement, that needs to be done really thoughtfully. We don't do it because our emotions are really big and are prompting us to jump ahead and do something, right, to alleviate our distress. This is why building distress tolerance skills are really, really, really important. If we escalate our tactics, that must be done thoughtfully, strategically, in a way that advances our cause. So you start out with something small, right? You don't like what the government's doing, you call your elected officials, you write a letter, you might have a honk and wave protest, and then you escalate, you progress forward to a disruptive event like a boycott, a labor strike. Only when those earlier, less escalated steps prove to be ineffective. Sometimes you don't have to ramp up at all. Sometimes the phone calls, the letter writing campaign, that's enough. Sometimes enough public pressure from constituents will get the job done. You only escalate when it is done thoughtfully and strategically and helps advance your cause. Why? Because as we escalate tactics, we see greater risks and we prioritize safety. So we don't want to take risks that are outsized and unnecessary. We also understand that as we're organizing as a group, we have our affinity groups, our pods, and then we have our greater movement. We understand that when we escalate tactics, that increases the risk for everybody involved, not just for ourselves. So we focus on having consent. Everybody understands what's happening. We all have buy-in. And then we extend that not just from our affinity group to our movement, but we build broader coalitions because we understand we build our power by aggregating, right? We bring people who maybe don't have a lot in common, but we all understand that we want democracy. We all understand that we're opposed to what Trump is doing and we want to stop it. So we build those broad-based coalitions. That's that phrase you keep hearing me use over and over again, broad-based coalition. When you are committed to nonviolent discipline and people know that you're strategic, you prioritize safety, you are thoughtful with your escalation, people are going to want to partner with you. People from other movements, other organizations, they are like, hey, those are folks that we can trust. Those are folks who are going to prioritize our safety and are committed to only acting in ways that advance the cause. It's not about people venting their rage. It's not about people just being angry. It is thoughtful, carefully scripted, and strategic. It is much easier to build a broad-based coalition when you start from a position of nonviolence, prioritizing safety, and planning carefully. And what do we know? What do we know from history, from experts in nonviolence, experts in authoritarian regimes? It is that massive public opposition. It is that big tent. It is huge popular support for the pro-democracy movement and against the regime that will cause the regime to topple. It is millions and millions of us engaged in sustained resistance. That's what we need. And so in order to bring in as many people as possible, we have to focus on coalition building and we have to be trustworthy partners. I'm going to conclude here with a little paragraph from our training handouts, and then I hope you'll come back for the next video because I want to talk about the different roles that people can play within a nonviolent resistance movement. And maybe you'll find a role that resonates with you that you want to take up. So let me read this real quick here. Movements across the world show that disciplined, nonviolent action supported by safety and solidarity can change history. In the US, civil rights activists combined disciplined nonviolence with careful safety planning to dismantle legal segregation. In South Africa, boycotts and international solidarity helped end apartheid. In Poland and Serbia, organized strikes and disciplined public resistance toppled authoritarian governments. These victories weren't accidental.